In this video, I'll be talking about the position property and direction property. The position property, at first, it's not very obvious what it does. So this is one of the harder sections. So do expect to struggle a bit in the beginning. You might have to go over this lecture more than once. Just give it a little practice and you'll get it. Now, what the position property does is it is used to move an element from one point to another. But before explaining position in a bit more detail, I believe it's more appropriate that I first explain the direction value. Now, there are four direction properties: left, top, right, and bottom. So you can basically move an element left, right, top, bottom by setting these properties to whatever pixel value, whatever percentage value. For example, if I were to set, and listen up carefully here, if I were to set a element's left property to 200 pixels, if I were to write left 200 pixels for some property, what I would be saying is I want this element to be 200 pixels to the right, listen carefully, right of a starting point. So the starting point is 200 pixels to the left of this element. Left refers to the distance of the starting point. Okay, this is confusing at first. If I said to right, if I have an element and I set the right value to 200 pixels, what I'm saying is I want this element relative to some starting point to be 200 pixels to the left of some original starting point. The starting point is 200 pixels to the right of the element. Now, what is starting point? And this is the reason you have position. Position is the value that you use to determine what original starting point means. And of course, the direction values, you can set them either pixels or you can set them percentage. And the difference is if you set them using percentages, the distance isn't fixed. So if I shrink the browser, it can change. So let me now begin by explaining exactly what position is. So for position, there are three commonly used values. The first value is called static, and static is the default value of position. If you don't set position, it is static. And with static, it means that all your direction stuff, left, right, top, bottom, it's completely useless. The element completely ignores it. So it doesn't matter what you set, it completely ignores it. So another value you could set for position is relative. The third one is absolute. So what is the difference between these two? Well, for relative, the starting point, right? Remember the starting point I was talking about when the direction values? Where you move, either top, right, left, or bottom. For relative, it's relative to the normal position of this element. You are moving starting from your normal position. Relative, get it? But on the other hand, if you are using absolute, then you are moving left or right, top, bottom, starting from a first ancestor whose position value is not static. Usually, but not always, this is the top left corner. Now, one thing before we begin our example though is you can also set a direction value negative, and that just means the opposite direction. It just means going the opposite direction as if you had set it to positive, left 200 pixels. If I set it to negative 200 pixels left, that means I'm going the opposite direction as what I would normally do. But anyways, as with all computer programming stuff, I think you'll only get it if I actually show you an example. So let's set four dividers. And the other two dividers I'll write in each one, like this, So two dividers, each with a divider inside of it. So the first parent, I'll give it the ID of parent 1. This one like here, parent 1, and let's give the parent 1's child, this guy, an ID of absolute. You can probably guess what I'm trying to do. Let's call the second divider here parent 2, ID parent 2, and this one, let's give an ID of relative. Again, you're smart, so you probably guess what I'm going to do. So let's give it the CSS. So for parent 1, let's give it a background color of red. Give it a height of 700 pixels. Let's give it a width of 700 pixels. And let's give it a margin left value of 300 pixels, okay? So this is parent 1. Let's style child. Let's style absolute now. Let's say, okay, before moving on, let's just give it a label first. Let's write some text inside of absolute. position. Oops. Just so you remember which divider is what when we open the browser. Let's say for this divider, let's give it a width of 200. Let's give it a 200. Let's set the background to green. Set its most important part is set its position value to absolute. And let's set the value of left to 100 pixels. And let's set the value of top to 100 pixels. Let's style a third divider. Now we're moving on to parent. Oops. 2. Let's set the height and width also to 700. Just like our first divider. And let's set the margin left also to 300. And let's set the background color to orange. So let's finally style relative. Let's get some text for decorations. Relative position. Let's also set this one's height to 200. Let's set this width also to 200. Let's set its background color to blue. Set its position value to relative. And also set its left to 200. And let's also set its top to 100. So the main difference, I've changed the color, but the main important difference here is the position part. Absolute and relative are different. The main difference is the position here. The left and top, I made the same on purpose. And let me show you how this would look in the browser. See, absolute starts moving from the top left corner. By contrast, relative position starts moving from its normal position as the starting point. Anyways, that about finishes this video. Thanks for watching. If you have any questions, please let me know, and I'll see you next time.